With that, I'd like to turn over the floor to our JNS board member, host committee member, Irit Tratz, to present the inaugural Shield of Jerusalem Award.
Oh, it's the inaugural.
On behalf of JNS, it's a tremendous honor to present Mark Levin with the Shield of Jerusalem Award. All of us in this room who have had the privilege to listen to and watch Mark on the radio and TV recognize just how appropriately titled this award is, as you truly are a shield for truth within a field that for years has been promoting a progressive anti-West agenda that threatens the safety of Jews everywhere and is upending the political and moral fabric of our great nation. Mark exposes liberal deficiencies in Democrat Party lies with a passion, clarity, and accuracy that is absent among today's media voices. Mark Levin hosts the nationally syndicated radio program, The Mark Levin Show, heard by over 14 million people in America and around the world. The Mark Levin Show airs 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern on over 300 radio stations across the U.S., on satellite radio, live streaming apps, and by podcast. Mark also hosts Life, Liberty, and Levin each Saturday and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox News Channel, where he explores national and international current events, fundamental principles undergirding American society, and many other topics with consequential guests. Life, Liberty, and Levin is the #1 rated cable news show in America on both Saturday and Sunday nights, beating all of their competition combined. Originally on Once Weekly, so popular is Life, Liberty, and Levin that Fox asked Mark to expand his Fox presence, hence the addition of the Saturday evening program. Mark is also the host of Levin TV on The Blaze, where he shares his unique, in-depth perspective of pro-American and patriotic values. Mark's newest book, The Democrat Party Hates America, was released in September 2023. Once again, the book debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list and remained on the list for a total of 7 weeks. In this hard-hitting work, Mark demonstrates that since its establishment, the Democrat Party has rejected our founding principles and set out to rewrite history and destroy the foundation of freedom in America. The Democrat Party Hates America picks up where Mark left off in American Marxism, the #1 book, nonfiction and fiction, for the entire calendar year in 2021. In total, Mark is the author of 10 New York Times best-selling books, with 8 of these being consecutive #1 New York Times bestsellers. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the great American patriot, Mark Levin.
That was beautiful. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. Thank you.
You want me to speak or sit down?
What's that?
You want me to speak now or sit down?
No, we'll sit down. We'll do an interview.
I'm just going to read the award. It's beautiful. The Shield of Jerusalem Award, Magen Yerushalayim, presented to Mark Levin in recognition of your passionate defense of Israel's right to security and sovereignty, your powerful pro-Israel voice and acute political analysis, your consistent defense of the elected government, your impact on the hearts and minds of listeners around the world, your unapologetic stance against the rising tide of virulent anti-Semitism, your courage in fighting Israel's critical media battle, and your dedication to Israel and the Jewish people. With heartfelt gratitude for your tireless commitment to truth and integrity, and your leadership in standing up for the fundamental values of the United States and Israel.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Big fat mazel tov.
Thank you. God bless. Here, honey. Thank you, sweetie. First of all, is this on? Push it up. I don't typically need a mic, you know.
There, take this one.
I got it. Testing. First, thank you all for being here. It really is an honor for me when people come up to me and thank me for doing what I want to do. which is to use every damn platform I have to fight for the two countries that I love and to fight for our liberty. I want to thank my wife, Julie, my mother-in-law, Sylvia, my stepson, David, just part of the great family that we have. I want to thank you, Alex, for this fantastic entrepreneurial effort here, which has really taken off. There's just not enough freedom-based platforms. And it's going to be the entrepreneurs, the independents, who are going to make a difference. And as my wife knows, when I get behind the microphone every night, or I'm in front of the camera, just twice a week, because that's all I want to do, I say, I am blessed to have these platforms, and I'll be damned if I'm going to waste them. So that's what I do with the platforms. I'm very blessed that Westwood One leaves me alone and lets me do what I want to do. And that Fox has not only allowed me to have the platform, but has expanded the platform. I know people give Fox a negative. Let me tell you, there's nowhere else that I'd be able to do what I do in front of millions and millions of people. So I want to thank you all. You're here for a reason. And just let me say one other thing. Whatever you're doing, it's me speaking, not the 501c3. Whatever you're doing this election isn't enough. Whatever you're doing, do more. There's a Kristallnacht going on in this country every damn day. Do more while we can. And if we're not outnumbered, we're almost outnumbered. We're a very small minority, and we're getting smaller, including in our own country, this one, with open borders and open immigration. You see what's happening in London and Paris, throughout Western Europe is dead. Eastern Europe is still with us. Western Europe is dead. Our big cities are dying. I call this, Alex, the second Muslim crusade. And I'm talking about Islamists. Their numbers are increasing in all these areas of the world. They're increasing in our country. Their political power is enormous. They have a home within the Democrat Party. They have a home in this White House, in this administration. And I'm telling you, whatever you're doing, thank you, it's not enough. So if you're giving money and you can give more, give more. If you're making calls, call more. You've got email, you've got text, you have the ability to be the Paul Revere's I talk about and the Tom Paines. Right at your computer, right at your desk, right at your iPhone. You have power like you've never had before. Look in your role, look at your life. Everybody can't do what I'm doing, but you can do something. There are tens of millions of us, Americans. We're not alone. There are tens of millions of Christians who support us and support Israel because they know that's their home too. But we have the benefit of what they didn't have in the 1930s. That is, we have the benefit of knowing what happened in the 1930s. And it's happening right in front of your eyes. This is no joke. This is no fear-mongering. Alex, I don't mean to filibuster. We have a country in Israel that is surrounded by the enemy, that is being funded in large measure by our own country and our own tax dollars. We have a prime minister in Britain who likes to brag that he's married to a Jew. We have a candidate in this country who likes to brag that she's married to a Jew. The New York Times is owned by a Jewish family. It was owned by a Jewish family in the 1930s, and the New York Times covered up the Holocaust. I don't care how many Jews they're married to. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is action. What matters to me is what they believe, what they're going to do. And when you watch what's going on in Israel with about 500,000 to 700,000 people, it reminds me, not that I'm a great ancient history student, but I do my best. It reminds me of the Second Temple. There are the Romans laying siege to the temple. And what are the Jews doing behind the temple? They're killing each other. They're fighting with each other. They're stealing from each other. And then finally they realize, too late, that they're about to be wiped off the face of the earth behind that temple. It's too late. When I see the Thomas Friedmans, the Anthony Blinkens, the Bernie Sanders, I get sick to my stomach. When I see the Gantzes and the Lapides and all the rest of them, I get sick to my stomach. Those 6 precious human beings were executed, including an Israeli American. I know what Reagan would have done. I know what Trump would have done. What the hell have we done? We attacked the Prime Minister of Israel. It's the most disgusting thing imaginable. It's incomprehensible to me. Incomprehensible. So I apologize to you. I'm now ready to take questions.
And here I was sitting here thinking that was the easiest interview I ever did. So now you actually want me to work for it. Okay, you just mentioned the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. You've been a strong supporter of the Prime Minister. You have railed against the flimsy corruption charges against him. And you were a supporter of the proposed judicial reforms. You know, what led you to these positions when so many Israelis don't understand it?
Judicial tyranny is tyranny. You could have legislative tyranny. You could have presidential tyranny. Tyranny comes in many forms. Just because people are lawyers and wear black robes doesn't mean they're not tyrannical. We support representative government. Judicial tyranny is not representative government. The first book I ever wrote was called Men in Black, about the United States Supreme Court. The court in Israel makes the United States Supreme Court look absolutely precious. It is a disaster. And because you have an elected party, Likud, you have an elected prime minister who are willing to try to adjust it, and they come into this kind of attack is really grotesque. The fact of the matter, the power that this court exercises is written nowhere. Nowhere. They create a basic law. They don't have a constitution. Israel was founded by socialists, European socialists. They feel they own the country. They don't own the country. Israel is much different than it was when it was founded. You have people who've moved there from the United States, from Africa, from Europe, all over the world. And it's not a European socialist country anymore. But they hold on as best as they can. Even economically, it took the Minister of Finance and Economics, I think they called it at the time, Benjamin Netanyahu, to bring some free market capitalism into that country, which turned it into a technological whirlwind. Liberty is the answer. And so the reason I supported the judicial reforms is because I've written 2 books on judicial reforms, Men in Black and the Liberty Amendments, about our own system and so forth, and I'm looking at Israel, and I have to listen to this Ehud Barak buffoon, who is really a nasty you-know-what. Omar, all of the failures as prime ministers, all the people who wanted to negotiate away the sovereignty of the state of Israel, if they had the way, there'd be no Jerusalem, there'd be no capital of Jerusalem, there'd be no Judea and Samaria, and you'd still have the Palestinians trying to cut every Jew's throat. It would be an impossible situation. And they're all on the other side, and partly funded by the United States left. And so these things to me are basic. They're common sense. If you believe in liberty, you believe in a real rule of law, if you believe in a representative form of government, if you believe in real justice, then you believe as we do. It's really that simple.
Why do you think that the elite in Israel doesn't go along with it, right? They want to make more money.
Because the elite nowhere goes along with it. The elite are very happy with what's taking place, so they wouldn't be the elite. They're the elite in that system. And they're going to hang on with their fingernails no matter what. So they get powerful through that system. Maybe they make money through that system. They get noticed through that system. Maybe they write columns for Haaretz. Maybe they're lowlives like this Barak Rabin fella, whatever the hell his
Barak
name is.
Ravid from Axios.
It's just grotesque. And so they have that view. Or maybe they're just wrong. You know, I talk a lot about the fusion of Marxism and Islamism. And I've been talking about this 7 or 8 years now, because I think that's what's happened over there. That's what's happened in our country. That the Marxists and the Islamists, you know, it's like Trotsky and Stalin and Lenin and so forth. They all fought for the same revolution, and then when they won, you know, they were cutting each other's throats, they were killing each other, chasing each other down. The Islamists and the Marxists have much in common, but much not in common. Obviously, Marxists don't believe in religion. Islamists believe in their religion and their type of practice of their religion, period. So what do they have in common? The iron fist, a centralized belief system. There can be no challenge. There can be no debate. So they have a lot in common when you think about totalitarian regimes or ideologies and so forth. They're vicious, they're vile, they kill millions. Obviously, they don't agree on religion, but they agree on revolution. You said I'm a big supporter of Benjamin Netanyahu. I've read about a lot of great men. He's among the greatest that I've ever seen in my life, that I've ever read about. And I'll quickly tell you why. And I'll talk more about this tomorrow morning, depending on where my mind is tomorrow morning. You think Abraham Lincoln was a great president? You think it was worth over 700,000 casualties to end slavery? I do. Well, do you know in the summer of 1864, the North almost went to war with itself. There were draft riots. There were 26 million people in this country. Virtually every family was affected by the Civil War. In the South, 25% of every family either had somebody who died or was some type of a casualty during the Civil War. In the North, the entire industrial output of the North was being used to fight the Civil War. And the war came to the North. You look at those battles. You look at Vicksburg, Spotsylvania, Gettysburg, Chancellorsville, the Wilderness. 2 battles at Bull Run, the same place with massive casualties. You had 35,000 casualties every battle. Every battle. Bodies all over the place, horses, just devastation. People all in the countryside could hear these cannons. And these men went to war knowing many of them would die, that they wouldn't survive. And the ones that survived that had the limbs cut off, they were cut off right there on the field. The suffering was horrendous. And in 1864, before the election, I want you to listen carefully, Lincoln was told it was time for compromise. It was time for a settlement. He said no. He said, I'm going to lose this election, but I'm going to do what's right. Because if we stop now, we'll have two countries, one slave, one not, and all these people will perish for nothing. What happens? Grant and Sherman happen. They need a victory. You ever heard the Battle of Atlanta? And so they win this Battle of Atlanta. They not only win it, they have to win it big. They burned down the city of Atlanta. They cut through Georgia, right to the ocean. Basically saves Lincoln's presidency. Netanyahu's being told over and over and over again, settle with these people. Make a deal with these people. You'll get the hostages back. He says, we can't make a deal with these people. We've got to defeat them. We've got to hold on to the Philadelphia line. We've got to control the territory. We've got to eliminate this scourge. They're not going to give us our hostages back if we surrender. I've never seen a man under this much pressure in my life. From the United States government, from Europe, from 40 to 50% of his population, from the media. I bring up Lincoln because people think that the nation in the North was just united the whole time. It was not united the whole time. And Lincoln said, no, I'm not going to buckle. Netanyahu says, no, I'm not going to buckle. He is a historic figure. And despite what half that country says, if they didn't have him, I don't know that they'd be on the upper end of this war right now. And I don't know if you'll ask me about this.
I might.
But
I right now?
I am disgusted by our own government. I am disgusted by this administration. I'm disgusted. I'll just say one thing, then you can ask me your second question. Or third, whatever it was. Never forget, Joe Biden is responsible for what's taking place in the Middle East right now. He funded the enemy, he armed the enemy, he appeased the enemy. That's not even right. You know, Neville Chamberlain never paid Hitler, never funded the Third Reich. Biden does fund the Third Reich. He funds Iran. This guy Blinken is the biggest buffoon to ever serve at the Department of State. They say diplomacy, diplomacy, diplomacy with terrorists, diplomacy with a terrorist state. All those deaths on October 7th, the hostages. Everything that has occurred from that point forward is obviously the fault of the enemy. But was made possible because this administration unlocked the door to the terrorists that Donald Trump had slammed shut. It's that simple.
Well, you already answered 3 of my questions on the American Civil War, so.
Then ask me a true or false.
I saw you last time in Washington, D.C. We were both in the room when Benjamin Netanyahu was giving a speech to joint sessions of Congress.
You should turn off the phones. Anyway, go ahead.
And I had a unique experience being part of the press delegation. Got to hear from the Prime Minister with the other Israeli journalists in between, after meetings with the White House. And you look at Netanyahu's conduct before that trip versus the aggressiveness that he's displayed after that trip. And I think in part that was because he perceived that there was no president of the United States, that there was no leadership in America. And that creates a vacuum. And that vacuum is only going to be filled by one of 2 extremes, either by Iran and its terror proxies or by the State of Israel. When we look at how Netanyahu has been playing along, I think, with the the Biden administration's policy toward how they think this should be conducted, we're now seeing a change. What do you think Netanyahu is going to have to do from here in order to really win this war, when you consider that he's fighting we're not just fighting against Hamas, not just against Hezbollah, but Iran, and also this progressivism that's running the American government today, as well as all of the European and UN institutions? How do you win this war?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win this election, I think that the United States and Israel will be fighting for our survival. I truly do. We in a different way. It'll be America. It'll just be a different America. And one that you won't recognize. You'll have America by executive fiat, by regulation, by judicial decree. You'll have an America that really is a Potemkin constitutional republic. Because we'll have all the institutions, we'll have the Constitution, but none of them will be honored. I think in the case of Israel, Israel knows that the only place where we can get arms in a serious way is the United States. It's a tiny country. It doesn't have an industrial base big enough. They're surrounded by 250 million Arabs, 6-7 million Jews. I mean, I don't know that any country's ever faced odds like this. And they're told they're not allowed to win. The history of Israel the last 75, 80 years as a state is they're not allowed to win. They had the Egyptian army surrounded. Sharon did. Wasn't allowed to win. I can go right down the list. They're always supposed to cut a deal, cut a deal, cut a deal. As the effective boundaries of the country shrink, even though territorially they don't, but effectively they do because of the advanced technology in the various military capabilities. I mean, if Israel had its way today, it would take out Iran's nuclear site. But it can't if we don't back them. If Israel had its way, it would enter into Lebanon and put an end to that. But it can't today. And obviously, if Israel had its way, it would put an end to Hamas. And it could have put an end to Hamas 3-4 months ago. But for the United States government, Biden, and the Democrat Party. You know, there is one silver lining, I will say, though. I've never seen the Republican Party so united behind Israel in my life. From the Speaker of the House, the former Speaker of the House, to every senator but Rand Paul, all of them. They line up. And I want you to think about something as Jews. This is a big problem we have. The vast majority of Jews in Congress are on the other side of the aisle. The vast majority of Republicans are Christians. They can be counted on. They can be relied on They support the state of Israel. You look at these Ivy League schools, who the hell do you think's been running most of these Ivy League schools? Whether it's Harvard, Columbia, Penn, you name them. That's what I mean about the fusion of Marxism and Islamism. You look at the modern Marxists, you've got guys that came out of Frankfurt, the Frankfurt School, Marcuse. You look at Marx, you look at so many of these people. And sometimes you have to wonder, you really do. Well, I won't say what I'm thinking. I will say this, my father once said to me, and I don't say this for praise, I say the way he thought. Thank God for you. I said, what do you mean, Dad? He said, do you know what kind of anti-Semitism would be in this country if you, Levin, a Jew, weren't on TV and radio standing up for the United States of America? And that's before, he died 6 years ago, before all this was going on. It's important that our fellow Americans know who we are and what we believe. It's important that they understand that we understand that but for them, we wouldn't be free to practice our faith in this country. That brilliant Constitution that they put together, and later the First Amendment, that protects us. It's the people who want to destroy the Constitution. It's the people of the hard left. It's the people who, you know who they are, you live among them, you talk to them. They're the ones who endanger us as a people. And let me say this to you. We are endangered as a people. When you look at the people who've written about totalitarianism, whether it's the Third Reich or Mao's China or Stalin's Soviet Union, there's a common thread. In many of these places, the people vote for the tyranny because they figure, oh, this can't happen to us. This can't happen to us. This won't happen in Germany, happen in other places. And it did happen to them. And then when they realized it was too late, the voting systems change as they're changing our voting system. Their legal system changes as they're changing our legal system. The media becomes a state-run mouthpiece for the regime, which is happening in the United States of America. I said before, we have a Kristallnacht in this country every damn day. And it's getting worse. We have funding coming into this country from Iran, Qatar, from Hamas, from billionaire Democrat oligarchs like Soros and others that are funding all this activity right in front of our faces. Right in front of our faces. It's becoming commonplace every day to watch something on a college campus or something happen to a synagogue. Almost every rabbi I know is now armed. We are in danger. It is crucial that we support the people who support this country, who support these principles, who support us, and that we support them. And as I said at the opening, I'm sure many of you are doing a lot, but you're not doing enough. Whatever you're doing, you got to do more. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. Whether it's money or activism, these fantastic people, what you do, spread the word while we still can. You look at the people Kamala Harris has already appointed for outreach. Jew haters, self-Jew haters. It's the worst. It's out in the open. Press covers it up. You guys cover it. Some of the other independents cover it. But nobody's writing about, look at what she's doing here. Look at who she's gathering here. Look at what she's saying here. She's got her guy who was part of this Iran spy group, Gordon is his name. They've already put out, if she's elected, they're going to have a committee put together to look at the relationship with the State of Israel. Look at the relationship with the State of Israel. So this administration has done next to nothing to put down these anti-Semites. It's done absolutely nothing to deport these people come into this country waving the Palestinian flag, speaking broken English, and we know they're not supposed to be here. This open border stuff has had a horrendous impact on the country generally and on us specifically. The complete lack of assimilation with CRT and DEI and ESG and whatever the hell it is, all of that stuff, people are supposed to come into our country and be assimilated. They're coming into our country and they're being gaslit. So we still have time. Whatever we're doing, we just need to do more of it. More of it. Because while we can, whether it's speaking, whether it's communicating, whether it's donating, whatever it is, you've got to figure out, just like the people who founded this country had to figure out, those were colonists, they were farmers, they were agrarian people. I'm not talking about arms and all the rest of it, but you got to figure out in your own little world what you can do. And I will tell you this, my family and I are armed. We're not planning on leading a revolution, that's the other side. But we will defend ourselves.
We'll do one more. 5 more in one. We saw what Trump did in his first term in office, especially for Israel, moved the embassy, recognized Israeli sovereignty in the Golan Heights, changed the way the government looked at Israeli settlements in the biblical homeland of Judea and Samaria, pulled out of the JCPOA, kicked out the PLO mission from Washington, D.C., defunded the Palestinian Authority, defunded the UN agencies that are promoting anti-Israel narrative. What do you think that, and of course signed the historic Abraham Accords. What do you think that he could do in a second term in order to fix a lot of the broken mess in the Middle East right now? And then also a second question, just because if I don't say it now, I'll never get it in.
You can always email me.
Understanding how much attack he was under during his first term and now, do you think that one man and one administration can put the United States back on track? Or is it just like a stock? You know, when it's going down, stock never goes up or down in a straight line. You know, it always goes down like this. So maybe you get a bump, but can he really put America back onto a positive trajectory that will bring America back?
You know, people ask me 10 times a day, are we going to win this election? I said, what do you want me to tell you? Yes? Would that make you feel better? I said, how the hell do I know? But what are you doing to make sure we do? Not what are we doing, what are you doing? So, I don't know if one man in one term can stop this. I asked Thomas Sowell, one of the last of the great icons to me, what does he think? He said if he had to bet, he bets it's over. But I don't. One election at a time. But we need to win this one. And If he's elected, they will try and destroy him the way they did the first time. But he's much wiser than he was before. He knows what he needs to do. And they know it, which is why they're trying to put him in prison. He knows it. He knows personnel is policy. He knows who he needs. When he got the nomination, I've never told anybody this. President Trump and I have a wonderful relationship. I don't abuse it. Only if I think there's something very, very, very important for the country or Israel. So I talk to him about it. And he writes me out of the blue, he texts me and he says, "We did it, we won the nomination. Ready? And I promise you I will protect Israel." I guess he sees me now and he sees, uh-oh, Israel's coming. But when he says, he doesn't say Israel has the right to defend itself. If you heard what he said last time, he said Israel has a right to win. He also says, but get it over with, which means do it and get it over with. He also keeps saying, Iran will not get a nuclear weapon if I'm president of the United States. What I do know for sure is the man likes to keep his promises. He's not ideological. He is common sense. He's a common sense, sort of a traditional conservative. He doesn't get into sort of the goofy stuff I get into necessarily. But if you think about it, he's been the most conservative president since Reagan. With the border, with the taxes, with the regulations, with the Supreme Court, confronting China, confronting Russia, building up the military, backing the cops, law and order. I worked 8 years for Ronald Reagan. Did the Chinese make this thing? What's going on here? Why not? They made everything else. And he's serious about China, too. He knows that our Navy is now smaller. The thing, he does not want to lose on his watch, period. He doesn't want to lose. And he's got a lot of people around him, but not just donors, people he listens to, lawyers, advisors, and so forth, who are Jewish or who are evangelical Christians. And he listens to them. And it's meaningful. So he may not come out and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and so forth and so on. But he will do those things, like Soleimani. He's not an isolationist. He's not a hawk, but he's not an isolationist. So Soleimani was killing American soldiers. He took out Soleimani. The NATO, he says, if you pay 3% towards your defense, or we're getting out of NATO. It's because he's a negotiator. That's what he does. And the media say, oh my God, he won't back NATO. NATO's stronger today than it ever was because of him. He left our military stronger than it was and it is now. Think about that. He left the border stronger than probably any time in modern history. And you go down the line, down the line, down the line with him. He knows from personal experience what they're doing to the Constitution, to the justice system, to the rule of law. He sees what they're doing to the border. He's a very common sense man. He sees all these things. One of the reasons he's hated in Washington is because he doesn't talk like them. He's not a bullshitter, excuse my French. Kamala will have her lines ready and so forth, and she may score points, and the media will be thrilled. He doesn't think that way. He just doesn't talk that way. He doesn't have a governor, so if it's in his head, it comes out the mouth. It's the way it is. But you know what? We had great leaders like that in the past. Generals, presidents, others. He's an iconic figure. He's a historic figure. He will be remembered as a historic figure for what he's tried to do and what they've tried to do to him. He will be remembered for these things. Just like Netanyahu will be remembered as one of the greatest leaders in history. A tiny country. And you know what, Alex? I'm going to use this opportunity to say something else that's never said, ever, by anybody.
It's a scoop.
It's a scoop. These young men and women in the IDF who've done miraculous things under impossible circumstances, outnumbered in every respect, who come out of the cafes, who come out of as construction workers, as doctors, as lawyers, who come out of the towns, small and large, and put their lives on the line to fight for their country. When they die, my family and I look at their pictures. They're never discussed in our media. They never tell their story. Who are these warriors? These common citizens who fight and put their life on the line. Who are these people? The IDF deserves the gratitude of every Jew on the face of the planet.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Levin.
Thanks for everything, buddy. Hope I did okay.
Where are we going now? Gotta make our way to dinner. I stepped down the lines a little bit, but it didn't matter.
That's fine.
Say it twice. Real well done. We had a news
Johnson, USIA. I don't know that Mark knows everything
Hi,
about
Bob.
the organization.
Write
Really
some
taking
time
those
today.
congressional
Yeah,
leaders.
for sure. It's in your
To
byline.
hear him speak so strongly about the question.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Let me try to connect those dots.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you money since you opened.
Looking really close to
Amazing.
what
Jonathan told me to go down to that.
Oh, wonderful.